Life is constantly moving, and in the midst of its immensity and never-ending movement, it's hard to catch a break. But as hard as it sounds, try to close your eyes just for a second and allow yourself to indulge into a memory of that song. You know, that song that had your heart beating along to the tune of its drum. The beat, fast or slow, seeps into your soul, allowing you to become one with the music. Now take another second and try to remember the words that left the artist's mouth. The vocal changes between each heartfelt syllable never loses its style. Maybe that artist devised a creative storyline about love and lost for you to follow along with. For some, one lyric or verse in particular sticks out like a sore thumb, tugging on your heartstrings. Music and the lyrics that complement it have a strange ability of being able to pull out that emotion for others to relate to. It could be easy to feel like those artists behind the clashes of sounds that you've grown to be comforted by have carried similar life as yours, whether that's true or not. In that way, those songs and lyrics performed by big-time musicians act as a catalyst to bring to life those emotions that we as consumers feel powerless in expressing. But what if I told you that your favorite artist wasn't the sole creator of the song you just dreamt of? Does it change your perspective on the effectiveness of the composition, vocals, or message you've already bonded with? The reality is, a lot of hit songs in the modern era are actually composed with the guidance of a plethora of people you probably have never heard of. Before those instruments and lyrics are performed by the face you're oh so comfortable hearing, there are people behind the scenes helping, and sometimes all out creating the piece.
Nowadays, we refer to those unsung heroes as ghostwriters.
The term ghostwriter is relatively new to the English vocabulary. According to the Times newspaper, ghostwriting was coined in the 1920s by Christy Walsh, who was a dominant literary agent for American sports celebrities in his time. Walsh, who was infamous for his uncredited pieces for sports stars, would shine a light on those who never got the credit for pieces of literary work admired by the masses.
In a nutshell, that's what ghostwriting is. The act of writing and publishing a piece of work without receiving any public recognition or credit.
Although Walsh coined the term over a century ago, the history of ghostwriting extends thousands of years before him, which leads me into the act of ghostwriting has been around for, well, just about since the beginning of written history. As humanity progressed towards ancient civilizations, the need for literacy grew exponentially.
Believe it or not, the first forms of ghostwriting actually originate in Mesopotamia, the oldest known civilization to man.
Writers known as scribes became an integral part of this ancient empire, as they were responsible for maintaining both domestic and foreign communication. In the ancient world, not many citizens were actually literate, as schools of the time were exclusive to those of aristocratic status. The process of learning to read and write was very grueling, with the students being required to restlessly memorize hundreds of letters, words, and the formation of said words. The strange part is,
the scribes would keep their identities anonymous for no reason in particular, but would still be highly regarded for their position and role of keeping the society's peace.
Worldhistory.org lets us know that even though scribes were anonymous in their work, they are sometimes described as those who never go hungry, with some scribes being among the most powerful people in their city. Many ancient civilizations held similar virtues for scribes, such as the ancient Egyptians and ancient Greeks. The kings of their respective kingdoms would hire scribes to write public speeches and other diplomatic pieces.
This tradition would carry on through the Common Era, where ghostwriting would take an entirely different approach and gain a new historical meaning.
Transitioning into the Common Era, public literacy became more common, and the practice of manipulating words into forms of entertainment became popular. Novel writing, music, and theater were now staples of daily life, which in turn resulted in a collection of masterpieces painted across early modern history. It's safe to say that the classical era, which lasted about 7 decades between the 17th and 18th century, produced many of the greatest musical composers of all time. Among them, a musical composer by the name of Johannes Chrysostomus Theophilus Mozart, or Mozart for short, stood out from the rest. Mozart was a virtuosic pianist, producing pieces such as the Requiem in D minor, Piano Sonata No. 11, and Piano Sonata No. 16, which, by the way, I listen to almost every day and would highly recommend. The allure of wealth and popularity Mozart received from his brilliance was greatly sought after, which is why many, quite frankly, less talented composers and patrons would commission Mozart to write pieces of work for themselves to take credit for.
Now, Mozart is said to have ghostwritten plenty of music during his time period, but in his case, it didn't matter much to him whether he was credited or uncredited for those ghostwritten performances because he was already considered one of the greats during his time in the public light. But what about those that weren't? What about those that were subjected to write for commission but were never given the acknowledgement in the public light? How did they feel, and how did they deal with it? Okay, so for this section of the video, let's do a quick pop quiz. Who wrote the lyrics behind this instrumental? I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, now leave your answer in the comments below. Okay, so if you guessed this beauty right here, unfortunately, you're wrong. The decorated platinum single, I Have Nothing, was written as part of a soundtrack by Linda Thompson and David Foster. Now, I won't deny that some of you guys, especially the older audience, might know this fact, but it shocked me that anyone other than the great Whitney Houston could have possibly written such a heartfelt song. And I will admit that I was pretty disappointed to find out that I actually wasn't connecting to Whitney through words she personally wrote. But I realized at that moment that it's almost impossible for one person to consistently push out substantive music on their own without the contribution of others. I've come to believe that the ignorance in societal recognition stems from the larger underlying issue of hyper-individualism. Particularly in the US, where aggressively capitalistic ideals reign supreme, more people have become accepting of isolated beliefs, but the act of putting a couple of shining individuals on a pedestal undermines countless equally important faces. Hey, so future me here. In the time between shooting and editing down this video, I've started to notice the little ways media discourages culturally holistic ideas. More and more one-hit wonders in entrepreneurship are pushed as the ideal style of living, whereas humble yet altruistic jobs like teachers and firefighters are continuously devalued in terms of attention. I could make hundreds of videos on the detriment this has on the political economic state of the world right now, and there are so many different aspects that I would love to cover, and let me know if you guys would be interested in that. But not to stray too far from the subject at hand, the impact of ghostwriters have been overwritten by the more favorable faces in modern media.
From Kanye West and Drake to Rihanna and Beyonce, almost every popular artist has drawn inspiration or even direct help from others we've never heard of before. Even extending the bounds of music, many best-selling books and presidential speeches are still ghostwritten to this day. The skill to produce quality pieces of literature is one that is often overlooked as a lost art, fading into the background as visual media has taken a forefront in the modern day. But I must tell you that it takes a very long time to form words into beautiful structures that must be carefully analyzed over and over to ensure public enjoyment. Ghostwriters hold both the time and the expertise to produce those sounds and words for the consumer to find comfort and solace in. Without the diligent work of these unsung heroes, only Lord knows how much either the quality or quantity of literary pieces would drop.
No one wants that, which is why the world needs ghostwriters, maybe even more.